This little area. If you see Bob and Steve, our friendly mannequins that demonstrate our beautiful polos and t-shirts. You want to move to the south of him if you want to continue talking. In the meantime, I would like to introduce Aaron Tekippe. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I nailed it. We call him affectionately Teacup, and he's going to talk about how you sell InfoSec to your management. It's a very valuable talk. It's something that I'd like to pay attention to. Thank you very much. Again, if you want to chit-chat, please move to the south of Albert Einstein. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, all right, so this one's going to be a little bit different than the normal talks we have at SecDSM because this is actually completely non-technical. This is driving change without authority, sales skills for information security professionals. Obligatory disclaimer, these views are my own, not my employer. This is my mindless ramblings par usual. So, if you don't know me, I started out my career thinking I was going to be a musician, which we all know how that went. Turned out I like to eat. So I got hired as a salesperson / sales manager, and I did that for almost a decade. Then I was a network engineer for a while, did some consulting, worked for a large finance company, broke into information security, and now I do all the things in infrastructure, and I'm a people person or something. And really, this talk centers back around my experiences as a salesperson and a sales manager. So if you want to know why I think I'm qualified to talk about this, so like I said, I was in sales for 9.5 years, which is a long time as a salesperson. Yes, sir?
What did you sell?
Oh, I'm getting to that, but that's a great question. So you'll find my talks are kind of ad-libbed a lot of times, like I just make stuff up. Sales guy in me. I sold beds in the mall. So my buddy's favorite thing to do in college was take me to the bar and make me talk to girls and then say, Aaron, tell them what you do for a living. And I'd be like, come on, it's not funny. And they'd be like, no, seriously. I'd be like, I sell beds. And the girls would laugh. And they'd be like, no, shut up, really, what do you do? And I'd be like, no, it's legit, I sell beds. So I did that for a long time. And in that capacity, I was held accountable to talking and doing 5 presentations a day. So I did 5 sales interactions a day where my whole goal in life was to get someone to do what I wanted them to do. Over figuring 260 working days a year, which generally didn't happen once I was in management, quick math tells me I did around 12,000 presentations in that time. So I've had a couple interactions trying to convince people to do what I want them to do in my career. And really, so that was business to consumer sales, which is why I talked to so many people. And it was probably 8 years into it, I burnt out, I started thinking, I want to get a job that's so technical that nobody knows what I do. So if anybody's seen the website is down, sales dude versus web dude, I was the sales dude back in the day. Now I'm kind of the web dude. So anyway, I went back to school, finished my degree, got a job in consulting, did some networking with some contacts I met, and finally I got an interview for my first job in InfoSec. Totally not qualified, but they had never had an InfoSec team or person before, and being a salesperson, I may have, full disclosure, BS'd my way through an interview. They liked me, they took a shot, and I'm doing the happy dance. Because, boom, this has been my goal for years. I'm an InfoSec. This is awesome. Have you ever accepted a job, and you have that 2 weeks, right, when you're waiting to start, and you start thinking, holy cow, what did I get myself into? And you actually go back and you read the job description on what you've signed up for? So this was my job description of my first job in InfoSec. Key leader responsible for reducing organizational risk and overseeing security assessments. Cool. Drives the overall security program. And gets to lead the PCI audit for a level 1 retailer. And I was the only guy. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. I love to learn new things. I'm not sure what all of this means necessarily, but I've studied a whole bunch of stuff. So how am I going to get this done? Like, I have to drive change and get people to do what I want. So I start. I look at the org chart, because I like org charts when I start somewhere, so I figure out the lay of the land. And this is kind of an example of this company's org chart. I mean, you've got your CEO up there, you've got your executives, your next layer of executives, some directors, and then a whole bunch of people doing work. Where do you think I was in this org chart as the person responsible for driving a security initiative? At the top, like it was my company, right? No, I was down here. Like I'm a worker bee. And it's like, okay, so now what? Right, so I go back to the job description. Okay, key leader, that's awesome, cool. Drives security program, leads the PCI audit. My title is Security Analyst 3. So that's cool, but I can tell you nobody's going to respect my authority with that, right? I can't come in and say, hi, I'm a Security Analyst 3, and you're the CEO, so I'm sorry, we have to spend a couple $100,000 on this stuff. I figured out that's not going to work. And I can't tell the server guys to put the controls in place because I'm not their boss and I'm a nobody and I'm new. So I'm thinking, okay, so how am I going to do this? Because I also hate to fail. I might be competitive as well a little bit for my background in sales. So I'm thinking, okay, so we're a retailer. I've got PCI. Like, we have to do this stuff. We have to be compliant. I'm just going to put all my stuff together and say, hey, we're going to change because the auditor's coming, and the auditor's a bad guy, and he's going to say, we have to do this. And I literally think this girl was in my first meeting that I tried that at. She's like, I don't care. Auditor isn't coming from me. You're responsible for it. You're the PCI guy. I'm a server guy. I'm an executive. It's your responsibility. I'm thinking, okay, well, that didn't work. What else do we got? Read a bunch of books. I studied a whole bunch of stuff about ISO and NIST and risk assessments. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to put together a whole bunch of security reports and assessments with all the risks we have, and I'm going to give that to people. Like, I'm going to take my Nessus report and give it to the server team, and they're just going to read it and go, oh my God, that's red. I have to fix it. It says critical. I thought that might work. No. I think that actually happened as well. No, we don't like your reports. So I'm thinking, okay, what else do I got here? How else can I get this done? Like hackers. There's all kinds of hackers. The bad guys are going to come get us and steal all of our stuff, and we're going to lose money. And once again, like, as a whole, people were not afraid of the hackers because apparently the hackers aren't real. And so I was really thinking through it. And, you know, you try a couple things in a new job, in a new position, you're thinking, you know what? Maybe they're all just stupid, right? They just don't get it. Like, I gave them all the information in the world. This is on them. This isn't my problem. I did my job. And then I started thinking about it. Like, no, my job description says it is my job to drive change. It is my responsibility to get this stuff done. I can't control what people do because I'm not their boss. Like, if I'm your boss, this is super easy. I can just tell you, hey, go patch the server because I said so. When you're not somebody's boss, that doesn't work. Like, they just laugh at you and just kind of look and be like, ha-ha, whatever. So I started thinking about what can I control. It's like the only thing I can control is how I present this information, how I interact with people. And I started thinking back, like, how can I leverage things that I've done and that I'm good at in the past to do this? So I kind of came up with a plan B. And I decided I was going to leverage my sales experience to try to drive some change. So I'm going to pose a couple questions. And as I thought through this became important to me. And this isn't just a security thing. This just becomes, like, in information technology, how we interact with people. Right? So how do you react to an incident? So let's say you're on the SOC. You get an incident reported, and John in accounting got a phishing email, which to us is obvious. Like, it is his long-lost uncle in Nigeria's third cousin that wants him to open this document and enable macros so he can get his $6 million. Like, this is reported to you, and you have to go over and talk to this guy. How do you react? Like, are you yelling at him? How do you interact with this individual in this time? So if you had a somewhat questionable security request, I mean, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you have a secured DMZ, and someone wants you to open CIFS or RPC traffic to this secure DMZ from the internal untrusted network. How do you react, right? I mean, is it, hypothetically speaking, I've never had that request as a former firewall guy. I mean, do you get mad at them, right? How do you react? As a former firewall guy and network engineer, when you get the inevitable, is the firewall blocking? I mean, do you just freak out and be like, nope, it's not the firewall, and I know it's not the firewall because I didn't make any changes to the firewall, and I'm the only guy who does firewalls, so I'm not going to help you go away. How do you react in that scenario? And this all comes back around. So when I started as a salesperson years ago, when I was, 22, the first thing I was taught is if you want someone to do what you want them to do, if you want to gain that agreement, is people buy from people they like. That is the number one sales rule that was taught to me and that I always taught my new people. So do me a favor. Think of someone at work that you like, that you get along with, you have a great working relationship with. Now picture it's 4:30 on a Friday, you're shutting your laptop down for the weekend, you're going on vacation, and they come up to you frantic, hey, I'm sorry, I need a favor, I need you to do this thing for me real quick, can you get it done? And your laptop's off, you put it in the bag. How do you react when you like that person? Me? I get it done. Like if stuff's broken and I like that person, I'll hang out all night. I mean, we'll be there until it's ready, and I won't leave. Now imagine the exact same scenario, but it's John from accounting, and John from the accounting is never nice to you, and he always yells at you, and he's always gruff. And he comes over at 4:30 on a Friday, and you've got your laptop put together, and he needs this email that's caught in the spam filter released because he's got to get his stuff from his uncle in Nigeria or whatever. How do you treat him in that scenario if you don't like him? Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not even going to look, probably. And it's that kind of thought process, right? So when people like you, they're more agreeable. So really, how do you do this in practice? And a lot of this stuff is really simple stuff, but it's just something we don't think about and we don't apply all the time. So there's no tricks to any of this. If you want like the sales tricks, that's like a 201 talk or a 301 talk where we get into some of the more complicated stuff. But this is easy. When you go to a meeting, if you're in a meeting with the executives or the business people, talk to them. They're people. Ask them questions. If you're in a meeting with the SVP of marketing, ask him how sales are. Ask them how their projects are going. They don't want to talk about the security stuff. They want to talk about the things they're passionate about and they like and they know. And if you start to carry on those conversations, people will like you and they will become more agreeable. And then just smile, right? And like I said, these things are not the really simple concepts, but another hypothetical. Say you're getting up in the morning. You've got to get your kids ready for school. This may have happened to me on a couple occasions. You've got an 8:30 meeting. You're already running late because the kids are not being agreeable. You're trying to get them out the door. They're fighting. The dog pooped on the floor. You step in the dog poop. You've still got to get the kids out the door, but now your only pair of dress shoes you're cleaning dog poop out of. You get them all carted out. You're running late. You step into that 8:30 meeting right on time. What kind of a mood are you in, and how do you carry yourself in that meeting? That's where this becomes challenging, to be agreeable and to not be agreeable, always say yes, but to be cordial, I think is a better way to phrase it. And just one more thought on this, right? So I pose a lot of questions to get you thinking. Have you ever been in a meeting? And I can't lie, I've been on both sides of this one. So let's say you're in a meeting and you're talking about something and you can feel the room start to heat up, right? You can feel the argument starting to happen. And then the next thing you know, boom, it's on. Like me and whoever, like we're going to butt heads and we're going to fight about this and we're going to have a good old-fashioned argument. I'm going to challenge you in that scenario to stop and think. What are you going to gain if you win that argument? Because there's this, you start to think like this. You can't win an argument because if you lose the argument, you've lost. You've lost your point. But if you win the argument, chances are you've still lost. And that's because in winning that argument, you may have to burn a relationship with someone. So 6 months down the road, when you need them to do something for you, they're not going to comply. They're going to argue back just because the last time you got one over on them. So I challenge you in that scenario just to stop and think, is this worth it? Am I going to lose the war to win a battle? And I can tell you, a better plan is to de-escalate that situation, or I can tell you one of the more advanced things a salesperson would do. I can tell you in a sales interaction, a lot of times, you can call it dishonest, I would take a dive Like, even if the customer was wrong and they were starting to try to argue with me, I would just acknowledge their point, say, okay, smile, say, you know what, sir, you're right. That's absolutely true, and move on. Because that was not my goal. My goal was to drive them to the decision I wanted them to make. And sometimes that argument doesn't matter. Yeah, and you gain one more big thing when you do that. Like, if you can de-escalate that, or if they're right, and you know they're right, as opposed to fighting with them, just say, hey, you know what, you're right, absolutely, I'm wrong. You build something even more important than people liking you. You build trust. And that is a huge thing when you're trying to gain agreement with someone, be it an executive, a coworker, a spouse. When people trust you, you become a trusted advisor, which flows into more things we're going to talk about. Some more hypotheticals. So we've got our incident, right? So John in accounting has opened the phishing email. You're looking at his computer. Like, you're trying to fix it. How do you interact with him in that scenario? Are you condescending? Are you nice? Are you supportive? Not to make it all negative. And I thought through this as the second thing that was taught to me as a salesperson. Number one was people buy from people they like. Number two, people are absolutely terrified of making a mistake. People are terrified of being judged by their peers, which is probably the reason that people hate public speaking or dislike public speaking, because they're afraid they're going to get up here, people are going to think they're stupid, and then they just won't do it. And the thing for me is, I came to realize in my sales career in all these presentations, as a salesperson, you hear a lot, you try to ask for the sale, hey, do you want to buy this? And people say, you know what, I don't know, I need to think about it. And you come to realize after a while, that isn't really I need to think about it. It's I don't want to make the wrong decision because I don't understand all the options fully. And so it was a big part of my challenge when I started sales and to my people was always, your job is to build the relationship of a trusted advisor. And you really want to get to a point as you build that relationship with someone that they're going to bring their challenges to you so you can present solutions proactively, if that makes any sense at all. And the best way I can tie this back to information security is a security awareness program. Who here has a security awareness program? Yeah, I love security awareness. I think it's fun. So really, with security awareness, what's your goal of that program? Like, when you do the presentation for people, what's the overarching message you have? This is a real question. Anyone? Don't click stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
Just think.
Yeah, and that's a good one. Like, just think. That's a good one. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I've heard people say, don't click stuff, which is good. It's great advice, and I'm not going to lie. In my security awareness presentation, that's in there. But the overarching message I had as I built the security awareness program at this company, because I was trying to build the relationship of a trusted advisor so people would proactively bring things to me as opposed to trying to hide from security. My overarching message was, you know what? People make mistakes, and when the bad things happen, come talk to me. Like, I want to help. I geek out on this stuff. If you, like, I'm going to fix it. We're going to talk about why it's, like, where you went awry, and we're going to help you learn. But I'm not going to slap your hands. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not loss prevention. I'm not here to fire you. I just want to help. So that's the best way I can tie this one back to InfoSec. Oh, sorry. My slide I'm looking at on the screen is not the slide that's up there. And that goes right along with people need to know they can come to you if they've made an honest mistake. And once people start to know you and they like you and they trust you, they will start to do that. And then you'll get to a point where, hey, the business has this big project going on, and as opposed to trying to hide it from information security, because I've had this in my career, right? So if you're the information security person at a company, have you ever had somebody show up at your desk, hey, by the way, you're the firewall guy, we need you to open all these ports and put all these NATs in place for this project that you didn't know what was happening, right? And we need you to NAT from the internet back to this sensitive system that jumps 2 firewalls, which is going to violate all the PCI rules. Like, that happens, or it happened to me at least once. And I started to build this relationship of a trusted advisor. And at one point, by the time I left that role, I would have departments reaching out to me saying, hey, you know what, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? Will you be a part of the RFP process? And proactively trying to suck me in and bring me in, because they knew I would help. And they knew that once we got I wasn't going to fight them. And once we got the right solution picked, I was going to bring the project out. So more examples. So let's say, as we go to the third thing I'm thinking about here. So let's say you've put together a security strategy or an overarching, say you're a new person like me. I was a new security person at a company. Let's say you do your 90-day assessment, and you have examined the infrastructure of this company, and you bring the executives together, or peers, coworkers in IT, whoever it is that you need to do a thing, and you've got the security pitch put together, right? And I mean, we got bar charts in this thing, right? We've got graphs. We got some Venn diagrams. We have done our due diligence, and we've got a great presentation. And the overarching message of this thing is, I'm sorry, in a nice way, your infrastructure is a dumpster fire, and these bad guys are going to come hack you and steal all your stuff. And let's say you get done with this presentation, and this is the attitude in the room. You've presented the building's on fire, and everybody's just going, you know what? This is fine. We're good. We're good. We don't need to change. Like, there's no risk. I mean, you say the building's on fire, but I don't believe you. And I actually had this happen to me. And I was thinking through this process. I was like, okay, it really takes me back to the third thing that I was taught as a salesperson. And it's this. Emotion creates action. There is nothing worse in a scenario where you need to convince someone to do something for you or to drive them to action than apathy, indifference. When they just don't care and there's just no emotion at all, you're not getting anything done. So the first con I went to was DerbyCon. I don't remember how many years ago it was. But I got to take Chris Nickerson's Red Team class. And the overarching theme of that was the Red Team makes these threats real. So I came back from that training, and I was kind of fired up. I thought, you know what? We're going to put this in practice. I am going to make the threats real without getting myself fired. I went back and read my job description again before I did any of this. And it did say that I could do pen testing, because I think my job description said everything that an information security person could do, I think I was authorized to do. So don't get yourself fired. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, let's say you're hired as the information security person at, we'll use Home Depot as a retailer that had some issues. So let's say it's Q4 2013, Target gets hacked. And then we know that Q2, Q3, Home Depot gets hacked. And the overarching message that I heard after I was researching the news articles for this was the IT staff was trying to get these things fixed, and the message from management as the presentations went to management to fix things was, we sell hammers. We don't need to fix things because we sell hammers. Now, how could they have done this different? Because I can tell you, this was Home Depot's management back in the day. Not to pick on them, but they're a great case study for this that I can use as an example. So let's say we're the security team or the person responsible for security at Home Depot at this time, and we get the answer from management that we sell hammers. So how can you use the example that we need to get some emotion going to get anything happening? So let's say if we work for Home Depot, theoretically, what if we made a business case for the bad guys, for the criminals? Because business people understand business cases. Like, if you can prove that, like, I can make money doing this, like, finance and accounting people understand that. So let's do this, right? Because I think this is fun. So hypothetically speaking, let's do some threat modeling and figure out who wants to hack Home Depot. We know we've got some Russian cyber criminals that are a real thing because they hack Target, they want money, their skill level's advanced. We got potential malicious insiders that are low to advanced. But for this presentation for management, I'm at Home Depot. I know Target got hacked. We assume it was the Russians. I'm going to focus on the Russian cyber criminals. And I'm going to do some research because I want to make this real because we sell hammers and nobody thinks we're going to get hacked. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go on the dark web and I'm going to find the place where, as a bad guy, I can sell the stolen credit cards. So here it is. In October 2014, I was on a website, Rescatator CC, whatever that is. You can buy stolen credit cards and sell stolen credit cards on this website. This is a real thing. They're worth money, right? I can search for like West Des Moines, Iowa. I can buy credit cards from West Des Moines, Iowa. And why would I want credit cards from West Des Moines, Iowa? So when, as a bad guy, I buy them, I live here, I can have one that's local so it doesn't trip the fraud alerts. Awesome. And there's all kinds of them for sale, if you can read that. There's West Des Moines, there's more than I could find, different banks, $4 to $10 to $5. And if you're doing this for management, shoot, there's some money here. And they have an SLA. Management understands SLAs. This website had a 4-hour SLA. That's better than our IT staff. If I buy credit cards on this website that are bad, and I go home and say, hey, you know what? This credit card didn't work because they shut it off. Within 4 hours, they'll give me more credit cards. That is better than most companies' IT staffs. So we got a pretty good, I mean, this is a business, right? So, but I'm going to take this further because I want a business case. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, based on, well, not hypothetically, this is real because I was on that website in 2014. I could still sell retail credit cards for $14 to $15 a piece. Let's assume Home Depot runs 100,000 transactions a day. Let's assume half are on credit cards. Quick math tells me per day, retail, I can make $200,000 by hacking Home Depot. And that's probably higher than that because I don't know what their transaction count is. So what's that? Exactly, right? I mean, there's a force multiplier here that, like if I was doing this for real, hypothetically speaking, if I worked for Home Depot and I was on the security team, I would know the transaction count because we have to do the PCI audit where that comes into play. And I would have real numbers here for the executives or the management or whoever I'm giving this to. And let's say on the low side, because I'm lazy, I don't want to retail the credit cards, I don't want to hire an IT staff or build a website. That's hard. I'm going to wholesale the credit cards for a quarter piece, and I'm going to make $4.5 million a year. That's pretty awesome. I mean, shoot, I'm in for that. But I'm going to go further, because let's say there's a fire sale and I just want to dump these things. If I sell them for a penny a piece, I'm making $182,000 a year. Right? So if I'm putting this together for a management team, that I know this isn't going to get me fired when I do it, there's always that caveat, I probably stop here for management and say, you know what, there definitively is things here that have value that isn't a $20 hammer that somebody has to walk into the store and steal. We have data that has value that people want to take. Now let's say you were doing this and you had to then talk to the IT staff. Because I can tell you, IT administrators, this might get them moving a little bit, but not a lot, because they're going to say, you know what? Hacking's hard. Like, this is some super elite Tom Pohl in Johnston, Iowa that's going to pop our stuff. No. But they're going to push back, in my experiences. So we got to make that threat real. And this is where the red teamers and the pen testing comes in my mind. So historically, as I've paid for pen tests, I make it a game, and I tell them, here is the system that you have to get into. I'm not going to tell you where it lives or how to get there, but do what you need to do to get the thing. If you don't get the thing, I win. If you get the thing, I win, because then I've made risk real. It's a win-win for me, because my goal and my job here is to drive change. And I can tell you, when bad guys, hypothetical bad guys, get the thing, it gets people moving. So if I was going to do this for the IT staff, I would take my business case and I'd send a phishing email. And I would craft a phishing email. Hypothetically speaking, let's say Home Depot had a dress code where everybody had to wear suits every day. And you know there's an IT administrator that hates wearing suits. So let's say as the IT staff for Home Depot, I spoof an email from the CIO to said IT administrator saying, hey, we're thinking about changing the dress code. We want you to fill out a survey to get your opinion on our thoughts on the new dress code. What do you think happens when that person gets that email? I can tell you, I just popped a shell. But do I stop here? No. Nope, I take this and I document it as I go. And I pivot. And I use any tools I've got. I pass the hash, I use Mimikatz, I use all the things that I learned in DerbyCon and all the other stuff I do, and I hack as much stuff as I can. And I've got shells all over the environment. Do I stop there? No. No. IT administrators don't care about shells, and I can tell you management does it. Because, I mean, it's a command prompt, and that doesn't mean much to most people. You can tell them it's on a register, but that doesn't mean anything. But let's say I'm doing this assessment, and like the bad guys, because people are going to say, you know what? We've got network segmentation in place, which means people cannot get into our Home Depot stores from the corporate office, because PCI says we have to have network segmentation. And I might be a PCI guy, and the bad guys can read PCI. So here is like the beginning of PCI where it talks about scoping. And I've had many conversations with QSAs over the years over this. The interesting piece of this to me is not exactly how it's scoped, but it's anything that can adversely affect the CDE, the cardholder data environment, should be in scope for PCI. And in my conversations with a lot of people, at least not in IT security, they disagree with this. They'll fight you tooth and nail on this. But if I'm doing a security assessment, if I work at Home Depot and I know people may not do PCI to the letter of the law, I'm going to go start looking for systems that can adversely impact the security of the stores, which the stores have the credit cards I want to steal. So how can I impact them without trying to pound them through the firewall? A lot of POS systems are Windows-based. Are they on the domain? Is there domain trust? Can you get into a domain controller and use that to do shady stuff across the network? Patching systems, which ended up biting Home Depot. Can you get in the patching system and use that to push code, run PowerShell, do shady stuff? Logging solutions. I found logging solutions that can run code, which is pretty hot. So some agent-based logging solutions I won't call out in here. If you get into the logging solution, you can run code on the far side. Monitoring systems. I've done that before too. You get into a monitoring system and then it makes custom calls. You can write custom application performance monitors, which means you can write scripts. And if you can write scripts and run code, you can pop the box. And my favorite one I ever found was a file integrity monitoring system, which is only supposed to verify that nobody made changes to the system. And in a training, I was able to use that to run PowerShell and pop the instructor's whole domain and have it on a scheduled task. So every time he'd run another check to prove nobody hacked it, his domain rained shells to me. It was pretty awesome. So you do this, right? And then you're doing your hacking stuff, and then what? You get in one of these systems, it's time to make it rain, and you got all kinds of shells, like you got interpreter sessions, more stuff than you can know what to do with. Do you think the IT staff cares here yet? No. Why? Because there's firewalls. Like, you're in the stores, but who cares? Because you have to get the credit card data out. So as a bad guy, because I'm going to take this as far as I can, because I want emotion to drive change, how could the Russian cyber criminals get the stolen credit card data out of the store environment? Because there's web filters, there's firewalls. Thoughts? How to creatively exfil data? I don't know. What's that? Maybe so. Here, this is where I got interested in this. I gave a talk on this at one point. DNS, right? Exfil credit cards over DNS. But you can get pushback. I mean, that looks hard. Like, and people have done this. Like, in 2014, when I was looking at this stuff, like, bad guys, cyber criminals were doing this and exfilling credit cards over DNS because they knew in the stores, when you start thinking about how an infrastructure works, if you have a whole bunch of boxes in a secured environment, what are the odds they can talk to DNS on the internet, and what are the odds IPS or the firewalls are actually inspecting that traffic? Like, so this is a thing. Like, this is real. But then you look at this, and you're like, well, here's like some IDA stuff from reversing the malware, and that looks hard. But is it hard? So you start digging a little further, because that's the pushback you're going to get here. This is hard. Like, you can't do that. That's hard. I don't know. I got Google. It's on GitHub. Like, there's GitHub repos to do exactly this, to scrape credit card data out of malware and then put it back across the network And then we've actually seen a presentation here we've bought where we did it with some JavaScript stuff. So let's say you put this whole presentation together, and you've got from start to finish on how much money I'm going to make and exactly how I'm going to hack all of this infrastructure and how I'm going to exfil the data. What do you think the emotion level is in that room when you're done with this presentation at Home Depot? I think you're going to have some of this, hopefully. I mean, based on my hypothetical scenario, you're going to have some people fired up a little bit. So, in summary, so just things to remember as you're interacting with people that you need to get them to do things and drive them to change. People buy from people they like. So remember that it's harder than you think. Fear is the single biggest factor. People won't make a decision. So one of my primary jobs in IT and in InfoSec is to help reduce that fear so people will bring things to me. And then help make them decisions because I'll be the trusted advisor. And then emotion drives action. So you need to get people excited about things a little bit. Hopefully positive emotion. I can tell you can do this with negative emotion, but that violates rule number 1. That's a more advanced sales thing. I would not do that with people you work with. Cool. And I mean, that's all I've got. So I'm Aaron. You can reach out to me. It's my email. I'm Tekippe on Slack. It's my Twitter. Any questions? No? Cool. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. So, I've been told that we do have a CTF winner. So, it is 8:23. You have 7 minutes, if you're of age, to go get a beer. 7 minutes before the taps shut off.